Hey, Coach.
Good morning, Mike. It is February 1st, 2018. This is Crushing Iron Triathlon Podcast.
It is, and we are going to talk about a lot of things triathlon today.
Yep. Be prepared. So if you don't like triathlon, well, there's still a good chance we might not even talk about it because, as with most things, we just kind of go with the flow, and we'll see what happens. But there will definitely be some triathlon talk, you can be assured.
Yes, and, you know, whatever we talk about, it seems like there are some people out there who enjoy it. We do have 100 plus 5-star reviews on iTunes, and we appreciate anyone that will go there and review us or leave a great comment about the podcast that seemingly can be about triathlon or anything else.
Yeah, those are huge. So we really do. I know it's a hassle for people to do that, or some people see it as a hassle, and you don't have to leave a comment. You can just leave the stars, but the comments are super helpful because what we want to do is just keep building all these sponsorships and commercial plugs like you've been getting for the last year. Not really. We just we don't do commercials or ads or anything, but it helps other triathletes or other people looking to get into triathlon. It helps them navigate their way through the seamless bottomless pit that is iTunes podcasts and triathlon. So we appreciate you taking the time to do it. We also have a website that has anything and everything Crushing Iron, and that includes coaching, which is either customized coaching or training plans. We have spots available for that, and also training plan options, swim analysis, triathlon camps, swim camps, gear, photos of Mike in a Speedo. You name it, we have it. So if you haven't taken the time, we always have a link to our website, which is kind of our one-stop shop in the show notes. So take a minute, look around, familiarize yourself, and let us know if we can help you in any way this coming, well, we're already here, not coming anymore, this 2018 triathlon season.
I was scheduled for a new Speedo photo shoot Friday, but I'm not ready yet.
Yeah, we were. Mike was doing our the usual lady that we have that does our Brazilian waxes. She's a bit booked up with spring break coming around the corner, so we just want to make sure we keep things high and tight and trimmed for you for our listeners. So don't be deterred. We will deliver.
Yeah. I do have a high and tight haircut. Well, I talked about that last time. I'm almost race ready.
I'm getting a high and tight today. 1:00.
Are you kid and play?
Yeah, kid and play. Real high top, slight fade. Bringing it strong. Gonna keep the beard growing. And see what happens. I got tempted earlier this week because when I get out of the pool, if I can't make it back to the house, and because right now I got to put some beard maintenance product in it. To keep it from getting just straggly and I mean, to be frank, cover your ears. But if you don't take care of your beard, it looks slightly pubescent, and so you gotta you gotta really take care of it. And so I had one of my great athlete, Pete Flagg, sent me some beard grooming products for Christmas, and so I've been using those. And but yeah, I mean, when I've got it maintained, boy, it is a solid beard. You know what they say? The longer the beard, the more patient the man. So I'm gonna keep it going, and we'll see what happens come April when I have to race, if I trim it or not. But yeah, I'm gonna go with the high tight fade today.
Peter sent me a Ohio State Buckeyes shirt for Christmas. I'm not sure what that means.
It meant he gets name dropped on the podcast, so it really doesn't. It could be for any kind of a gift.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, so send gifts. Hey, no, we are a commercial-free podcast, and we're trying to stay that way. We do have on the crushingiron.com site a tab for pledge if you feel like shooting over a few bucks to support the podcast that is twice a week and has been for well over a year now, and it will continue.
That's true.
It's very simple, very easy, and very well received on our end and appreciated.
Yes, and hassle-free, so we appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Hassle-free and almost duty-free.
Yeah. So, speaking of triathlon.
Come on, man. We were doing so great. A great intro, fluid.
I know.
And I mean, that was a weak teaser and a segue.
It was, but you know it's coming. You know something good is coming.
Speaking of triathlon, so
should we talk about the Bill Belicheck article?
I think we can.
No.
We should a little bit, but I don't want to seem like we're Bill Belichick fanboys. Is that just if I got any of my Dolphins brethren listening, they're gonna think I'm a traitor. But listen, as you know, this isn't football totally related. It's more coaching, and I always, coaching really isn't all that different across different sports. Like there's so much to learn. Like that's one of my bigger pet peeves is triathlon coaches who only want to listen or read about triathlon coaches or other but there's so much to learn, or whether it's questioning things you do or even giving you confirmation about looking at the best in every sport, whether it's rugby or soccer or basketball or football or whatever, tennis, whatever it is. There's always a lot to be learned, and so I just always genuinely like reading about coaches. And I mean, there's just really, you can't argue if that he is the greatest, if not the top two greatest football coaches of all time, and probably honestly just one of the best all-around coaches of all time. And the article that I sent you yesterday was just fascinating to me, and we'll if you want, we can link to that in the show notes. But I think we talked about this, maybe even alluded to it without reading this in another podcast, about why, that even though when the Patriots fall behind, they always come back, and it's because they do. Maybe it was Zach. Zach Showalter was a couple of podcasts ago from Final Four and Iron Man podcast, but we're talking about the Patriots always come back because they do everything right or as close to it the whole game. Mm-hmm. They don't play perfect halves. They play almost, in the Super Bowl was a last year, I guess, was a perfect example. They play every minute of that game, and the article is about conditioning and most importantly about running, and just the intent that he doesn't have them run useless wind sprints. Everything has a method, and there's always with Bill Belichick, there's always a method behind the madness. And they run they do football route specific, or it's just specific to their skilled position, whether it's a lineman, a fullback, a linebacker, a corner, whatever it is, and that he doesn't time them. He's not that that ruling with an iron fist type conditioning coach. We see him, he just says he can feel it, which I thought was just really fascinating. He can see if they're working hard. He can feel them as they go by, if they're really putting everything together, and if they've recovered or not. And I just thought that just another way of, for football teams that tend to use like every bit of, pseudoscience, recovery method, pimped out locker rooms and chambers and all kinds of stuff, like that other coaches or teams aren't doing stuff like this. But it's just, I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it's just down and dirty, right? It's like down and dirty. One of the things that stuck out to me was this, how they talked about they run this hill, right? And we talk about hills a lot, and that just always kind of gets me a little bit excited, because I do think hills are king. And they were talking about how at the end of practices, they kind of all gather around and they look at him and listen to him, and they all know that the possibility of their practice being over is not quite real yet. And it comes down to whether or not he's going to say, do we need to run the hill today? Yeah, let's run the hill. And it's always like, that's always the answer. It's like, come on in, good practice, everybody. Oh, it's not quite done. We're going to go run that hill for a little bit, and that's going to be the fourth quarter difference. Because you're about zapped right now, but I'm going to throw you up this hill a little bit, and That's going to make the difference. And I just found it fascinating. I always find that stuff fascinating too, because I think other sports, I'm really curious about the crossover into Ironman and triathlon in general. And I was thinking about how does that article apply, or how does that philosophy apply about being very specific and targeted in your sprint work or your hard work and things like that. And it brought me back to that famous day when we did your track workout, and that was almost exactly how you laid it out.
It was pretty close.
It was very specific. We were training for Muncie half, and you basically got us out there, and we started at a pace that we could handle, and then it was all about, coming in, taking a minute off, rehydrating, whatever, every mile, and then trying to descend each mile from there on by pace or by feel.
By feel, yeah.
Yeah, and I just, you've had, obviously a lot of people have given you great feedback on that particular day and that workout in general. And I just think it's so applicable. I'm always looking for that. It's like, why does this matter? What I'm doing making sense right now? It's like those guys were saying in that article, he doesn't make us run like 5 miles.
Mm-hmm.
He said that'll never translate into a game. It doesn't do anything for what we're doing. So it's not just running to run. So what is, it's sort of purposeful. And I know you think about everything like that, frankly. I believe you do.
Well, yeah, I mean,
whether it's recovery or...
Yeah, exactly. Everything has to have some kind of, a purpose. And, it's force. Everybody thinks like you have to be hard. Everything has to be harder or faster and longer for it to be, give you the ultimate return on your investment. And there's so much judgment that you have to have as an athlete and as a coach. And that was actually, I posted something like that to our athlete only closed group on Monday morning, and it said, hard work is overrated. Judgment is underrated. Which direction you go is more important than the force you apply. And that is that was reminiscent also of that Bill Belicheck article, and that, it's just not pointless. Like I immediately thought of, and yes, is Tom Brady a good quarterback? Yes, he is. But the receivers that they take from like nothing teams, they run the exact same route they do the first play of the game than they do in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
At the same speed, the same, blade of grass. They do everything as close to perfection as possible. So when you fall apart or you can't respond to it, they're still doing it. And it may not. They're like the opposite of the way Alabama does things. Like they wanna beat you up so much in the first half, you don't want to play them in the second half. And Bill Belichick, to a different extent, I think, but somewhat the same, wants to out-execute you all game to where you might be able to stop it a few times when you're fresh because you're on it and you're thinking real quick and your body's responding real quick. But as your mind tends to, you become mentally fatigued and physically fatigued, well, guess what? You're not going to be able to respond to it that quick. You're not going to be able to jump that, slant like you did in the first quarter. And it's going to end up being a 40, 45-yard game because they can still do it and you just can't react quick enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, and that goes for everything, and this was something that you and I talked about when I first started coaching you, almost like 5 years ago, that Wisconsin, you're like, when are we going to start training for Wisconsin? Right now.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, we did a lot of strength work, a lot of, big gear work, and I'm always a big fan of that anyway because there's just so many applications to performance and making you a well-rounded cyclist. But it's like if you have a lot of hills in your the race you have coming up, like I get it. I totally understand that in this time of year, it's really, really fun to hop on, Trainer Road or one of these things where you just get in aero or you sit up and you just grind out at a high RPM. And I'm not I don't subscribe to the belief that you have to be a certain RPM to be successful. I just think it's frankly horseshit, to be honest. I think everybody has a natural cadence, and I've always been more of a lower cadence fan in general. But if you going hard is great, but if you don't do strength work and lower cadence, basically simulating hills, even in the the winter months, then you're going to be behind the 8 ball, because it's a different strength. It's a different kind of strength. It's a different pedal stroke, and that's why I have athletes, even who may not be doing a flat one, who are far away and doing strength work. And you always have to have things in the back of your mind, and you always have to know that it's for, I don't want to say it's for the greater good, but for the end game. You always have to have that kind of thought process in mind that, while we're building for today, we know that down the road it's going to lead to quote unquote the day, race day. And that's what everything is going to be, where everything's going to be coming to a head. And that's why, you just always have to be focused in it. And while it doesn't, and that's honestly like a huge reason why a lot of athletes get coaching, is because they just don't know. I don't know how to prepare for this. I don't know the differences. I don't know why. And it's so much thinking that goes on, and you waste and can waste so much energy on, not just time, but energy on thinking and overthinking and questioning, and then reading and then questioning again. It's like you're in a constant state of changing direction or changing your plan or going all in, and it really isn't all that difficult, to be totally honest. It's just, it takes commitment and perseverance and big picture. You got to look at the forest and the tree all at the same time. But yeah, and he does. Belicheck is he, like he said, like that. I just want to go out and have a good practice today. It's just, that's it. I just want to wake up today, and I just want to do the best I can today. And for me, this is like, I guess, kind of going off script a little bit, but we can do that, is what being a parent has taught me about taking advantage of every moment of every day. In that, there was a long time where Hayden, like, as an infant and as a toddler, like we'd be going on like 3-4 hours of sleep. And like, although he's sleeping a lot better now, like each day that I get a good amount of sleep, I'm like, oh, dude, I'm going to nail today. Because I don't know if tomorrow is going to be one of those days where we wake up and he just has a really, really bad night, and I get 3 hours of sleep, and so I can't wake up having, being fully rested and just totally slack off like a lazy ass. I've got to take advantage of it. And just have like Belichick, have a really, really good practice today. Have a really, really good session today. Nail my training sessions. Don't quit. Don't push one back. Because listen, he might get sick and be out of daycare the rest of the week. He might have a terrible night sleeping. We're sluggish, and I'm gonna feel great today, and I'm gonna be like, but I can just move it to tomorrow, and then I wake up tomorrow and I've wasted an opportunity. And so I've really before reading that quote about Belichick, but it was just that, like, man, today, it's amazing what the gift of rest will give you. It's like,
yeah,
how much just how much like crazy different your day can be, and your energy levels and your motivation and your attention to detail. And so every day that I wake up and I'm like, man, we made it. It's like, man, I'm going to take today and I'm by the horns and I'm going to get after it. And I think it's hard to understand if you've never had a child, you don't have a young one, but to the same effect, like people who struggle with sleep, they know like how important it is. And it's just like, you just can't take these days for granted that sets you up. You just have to go out every single day when you wake up and the alarm clock goes off or whatever it is, and just think, today I'm going to have the best practice I can. I'm going to do the best I can at these sessions, and then I'm going to wake up tomorrow and see what the day gives me and do it again, and just string those together.
Yeah, I certainly know that sleep challenge part.
Exactly.
I work on that a lot, but I want to go back to the what you're saying about the big gears and grinding and how that's valuable in whether it's a big hill race or a flat race or whatever. Just because, it is that the analogy always is that, the last half of that run is sort of like the fourth quarter of a football game. Who's going to be able to show up and have their strength needed to get through that second loop of the marathon or the second half of your run, no matter how long the triathlon is. And, I always think about that in terms of the big macro picture, but I also look at it in each event. So when I get in, I sort of approach each event the same way I approach the entire race, which is, kind of that negative split mentality, at least in my mind. Because, when you jump in and swim 2.5 miles or whatever, realistically, by the end of it, I'm getting tired if I'm not trained up. So, like, if you start, it's like coming out of the gate, you see this all the time in sports. It's like these teams will come out and you're playing against them and they're just crushing you that first 5 or 10 minutes of the game. And you're like, oh, man, this is going to be a long game. But then whatever, the other team just kind of stays about their game plan, and by the end of the game, it's sort of turned around. So I think about that when I get in the water, and I talk about easing into every event, and same with the bike and the run, because you can't, if you go out too hot and in anything, it's going to come back to haunt you. I just believe that in the long run. You have to.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's that grind. It's that sort of purposeful approach to each little segment of the race that, to me, is always huge. And I know, like, people have power meters and they just try to average, they just try to stay steady. But I still even say, you use a power. I don't use one. So, but you still, like, try to, like, inch that average up, or do you go after it from the beginning of the ride?
Man, I did a long. I guess not a long. Not a fan of super long trainer rides, and
why not, man?
In January, it's just like mind-numbingly terrible. But it was an hour and a half. But my whole thing was just I wanted to build the whole thing. I started off I could keep it between 65 and 70% of my threshold, just an endurance based ride, but I wanted to build it and inch my average up, starting the ride from 65 where I was hanging out in up to where I was averaging close to 75 at the end. And I just think it's good for your mind, it teaches you patience, it teaches you perseverance, and it teaches your body to be stronger and go farther and absorb and know. I think your body understands patience, in that I think there's a direct correlation and relationship with mind and body when it comes to long distance racing. The more you pace yourself appropriately in training, I think your body gets antsy as well as your mind does, or they feed off each other. In that, when you're doing a really deep training volume anyway, like I tell my athletes, like, I don't even look at if you're doing like a 4-hour ride in August and you've been doing a lot of volume, I don't even really look at your power numbers for like the first 2 hours, because you're just getting warmed up. Like most athletes will say, and like even this time of year, if they're putting in a decent amount, they'll be like, yeah, every day, yeah, it took me like 20 minutes to get my legs under me, but then I found it. It's like your body adapts to that, and you can see that, and then so does your mind. You're like, but see, I might feel bad now, but guess what? I know in like an hour and a half I'm going to feel better. And to the same extent, like you had that one ride where you and I started together on the trace. In the first 10 minutes, I literally thought you were going to turn around and go home. Right. Because you were almost like infuriatedly angry, because your mind was so ready to just have a like incredible ride. Your body was like, hold up, man, like give me a little bit to like warm up. Like, you want to go out and ride your car, but if you pulled out of the garage and it's cold and you want to go 100, it's going to scream at you. You give it a little time to warm up, and it's like, all right, it's like, it's a weird relationship between telling your body to go and your body telling you no. And like that push and shove in that relationship. But it comes with pacing. It comes with doing it in practice, and I'll have athletes a lot of times like longer-ish runs as just a negative split, And it's just teaching your body to listen to itself, and you watching it and paying attention, and just getting in a habit of being conservative, but doing things with a purpose. And you can't ask an athlete to try a negative split or try to pace it evenly in a race if you don't prepare them to execute it in training so they have that experience and those feelings and when it comes to race day. But I will tell you right now, though, I guarantee you Bill Belichick would not be a fan of the long run.
No. Well, no, I mean, it's not appropriate.
If he was in triathlon.
Oh, really?
No, he's the same way. Like, he doesn't have his athletes go out and run 5 miles, because it's not like all you're doing is practicing being slow for a long period of time. Mm-hmm. He'd be all about specifics.
Oh, you mean like the super long runs?
Exactly. Yeah, like long runs, like anything over like 2:15. You see people doing like 3-hour training runs, which is insane. But no, it's everything should have a purpose, and even in training, even in January and February that we're in now, it's like we got the whole year, and oh crap, like a month's already gone by. Mm-hmm. And it's like you're like for real close. I was texting back and forth with an athlete, Summer Scanders, that I'm staying with in Galveston, 70.3, like already talking about race day. I'm like, gosh, like I feel like just a minute ago, like Louisville was over and the season was, time for a break, and now I'm looking at, less than 70 daes to, popping the cork on the 2018 season. It's like that's like nothing. Yeah. And it's like 2 months, which is nothing. So it's, but even right now, everything has a purpose, and you're thinking of what's next, but you're also thinking about, well, hopefully you're thinking about what's most important for you this year. Whether it's your first race or your last race, or the just whatever the race is, that's the absolute most important to you. You're thinking about that, but you're also really focused on what's next and how they're going to play off each other. Yeah.
And where is your mindset right now with that? You're just doing the consistent.
I'm just doing it, man. I mean, I'm getting. It's a little difficult right now in terms of, longer stuff, just because you're on the trainer and it's not like nice weather. Like, I'm hoping that March gives us some nice days so I can get outside and do some longer stuff. But I mean, 100% of my cycling is going to be indoors more than likely, unless I get a couple of days where I can get outside. Mm-hmm. And so it's just, it's been hard efforts on the trainer. And as we're now getting closer to race day, it'll be more about, how long can I hold these higher efforts? It's getting pretty close to putting in maybe some 2 or 2.5 hour rides, but I can do that on the trainer. I've got, I don't mind it. I can do it. Runs are just still frequent in swimming. I'm at about 11 or 12 hours a week right now, just kind of hanging tight. I feel really good. I mean, things have really progressed well, and I've put in a lot of work since Louisville. But no, I'm in a good place. I'm just taking it day by day, and I got 2 sessions today. I just got done doing one. I'll do another one right after this cast, and just try to kind of keep going. And I'll start to dial things in terms of race, quote unquote, race pacing. For me, it's more race effort. How long I can hold these things, because that's one of the things that a lot of people get caught up in. Like they're like, and yeah, I've talked about before, like why I'm not a huge fan of testing. I look at trends, because every athlete wants to test all the time. And when it comes to like long course racing, like 70.3 and above, it's not what's important for short course is not the same as long course. And like everybody right now is like, I'm gonna hop on Trainer Road and really raise my FTP. Well, that's great, but who says you're gonna be able to hold a high percentage of that? So, for example, like Johnny Triathlon is going to try and hold his, get his functional threshold power. He's going to work all off season on, just bumping it up to like 300. But when it comes to having like the muscular endurance and being what what I would call it having really, really, really deep fitness for a half Ironman. Maybe he can only hold 70% of that, of his 300 versus a guy who has like his functional threshold at 280, but he quit obsessing about his functional threshold power, not just because he wants to quit obsessing about it, but listen. If you're really, really, really going to focus on raising your FTP, your functional threshold power on the bike, you're going to have to ease up on the running. And I'm just not a fan of easing up on the running because it's the most important. And it takes the longest to become durable. And it's the biggest benefit on race day. It takes the longest to become successful and faster and fitter at it and do it safely. Without, trying to whip off a track workout on Tuesday and hard hill work and like having 3 intensities. I'd rather ride a lot and become really, really, really fit with some really deep muscular endurance and still be able to run well versus be the guy who got his FTP to 300. Oh, yay, it's 300. And then whatever test you use, you end up with what they call like vanity functional threshold power. So you take like a 95% from that 300, and then you just believe that, okay, that's what I can hold for an hour. But the fact is most people can't.
Right.
And so when you look at the guy who raised his FTP to 300, but for a 70.3, he only has, he's been doing the short stuff all the time. So he really has just been really good at, creating short-term power, but really, really, really high. Yeah, is he going to do okay in a 70.3 at 70%? He'd probably do okay. But I would much rather take the guy who has like a functional threshold power of 280, but he can hold 85% of that for a 70.3. And that doesn't take for example, so a guy with a 300 functional threshold, a legit 300, if you can only hold 0.7 of that, you're looking at 210 versus a guy at 280 who can do 0.85. He's looking at 238 watts. That's a 28 watt difference, which is huge. So the guy that's obsessed with the 300, yeah, I've got a great functional threshold, but if you can't hold a high percentage of that for a long time, you're not really long course triathlon fit. You're more suited probably to really blow the tops off like a sprint or an Olympic distance. So you really look at pushing the percentage up higher, and that's what I'm trying to do right now, is hang out where I am, just hang out. I'm not really trying to increase my functional threshold power because, to be honest, if I really wanted to, then I would need to shelve my running and not run 5-6 days a week, and I'm just not willing to do that because I don't think the ROI is there. But what I can do is continue to just really, really work on my bike fitness and get to a point to where I can hold 80% of my FTP or 85% for a 70.3 instead of being stuck at 75. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. And again, that's something that a lot of people struggle with this time of year because it's everybody's go-to thing. Hop on Trainer Road or hop on this and hop on that, and it's all about FTP and it's all about this. And yeah, I think cycling blocks are important, but they're more for deep-rooted fitness than just raising the number on a scale. For the same way that a 5K all-out isn't a predictor of how well you're going to run the marathon at the end of an Ironman. It's the same exact thing. It's how long you can hold up and how long you can hold these paces, and not only have deep fitness to, run a 0.8 or 0.85% in your half Ironman, and then guess what? Still have the legs.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And so because if you're still running plenty, then so look at it from that way. You got Johnny Try, who's trying to crazy up his FTP, and that's all he cares about. He wants to just look how high it is. Dude, it's just a number that you can do for 20 minutes. Yeah. It literally has very little correlation for a long course racing, as much as people want to obsess about it.
Well, I think okay. Go ahead.
So in order to do that, you have to run less. So you're not going to be able to run even as well as you would want to off the guy who has to hold the less percentage. Versus, Derek Triathlon, who is just working on really deep, sustainable, harder efforts fitness, who can race at 85 or even 80%, and guess what? He's still able to run 5-6 days a week. Mm-hmm. Who's going to be set up for success? And who would you put your money on being able to run better? I'm gonna take old DT, old Derek Try.
Derek Try, okay.
That's right. Yeah, I'm gonna take old.
No, it's a good point. I think a lot of people that maybe come in to the sport from straight cycling and or straight running backgrounds kind of get this idea, because I do believe that if you're in marginal shape for say a marathon, or you ability to do a marathon, your 10K or 5K time may be indicative in planning, like what you think you can run a full marathon in. But like you were saying, you're not adding the cycling portion and the swim. I mean, it's just a different animal. You know what I mean? Like, it can be a good indicator. Your 10K time can probably be a fairly good indicator of a marathon time. But once you add in all the other elements of a triathlon, it gets to be a little murky. And you start, it doesn't even really, not even murky, it doesn't even apply at all, really.
Yeah, there is absolutely zero application.
Yeah, so
it's like,
right.
Oh, wait a minute, you didn't have to swim hard and then bike hard and then now run? Oh, okay, yeah, good luck on those calculations.
Right. Yeah.
And showing me or telling me how, it does literally nothing. And like I riffed on it on the last podcast, like those ridiculous race predictors. Like, oh, your 5K this, I'm going to spit out these numbers. Here's your 5K, 10K, half marathon, full marathon. Like, you don't even know if this person has the durability to even run for 45 minutes longer and not totally fall over.
Right, yeah.
From a durability. There's so much like over analyzation of numbers, and trying to get, a higher this or a higher that, when the reality is if you can't hold it longer, then it doesn't mean shit anyway.
Right.
That's hard. It's hard for people to understand, because, they're always taught, more and more, but it's like, that's that give and take of training. Like, you have to know how much you're giving up in order to get X, and if it's even worth it. Like, how much running am I going to have to give up to raise my FTP? How much of my cycling, am I going to have to give up in order to be able to run a sub 130 half marathon? Okay, well, I'm going to have to take my rides easier, because you can't have all of it. And you see so many athletes doing this all the time. They try to do all of it. I'm trying to raise my FTP and I'm trying to PR the half marathon. Good luck with that. Can you do it generally? If you're just doing it like on a long-term sustainable way, absolutely. But if you want, you can't tell me you're in a really, really hard, deep run focus and a cycling focus at the same time. You just can't do it. You have to rein it back in and not necessarily sacrifice, but be okay just kind of hovering in one area and then just finally blending them all together. Which again is why I'm such a huge fan of the frequency of running and the benefit, because you can do a lot of running and get in a lot of volume and a lot of quantity without trying to crush yourself 3 days a week on all speed sessions, because you can still hit the bike hard, versus the guy that wants to go out and hit it so hard on a track workout and the next day his cycling workout doesn't mean anything because his legs are shot.
Yeah.
So it's hard. And that's why it's like the greatest puzzle of all, sports to me, is like there's just so many things to consider when you train or not train or do or not do, and it all comes down to judgment.
All right, let me shift gears a little bit, because it's your race is in Texas coming up in 70 days, you said?
67.
67 days. You're in Nashville right now. It's been freezing cold. Have you been doing any sauna training?
Yes.
Okay. Yep. I've been diving back into that a little bit lately again, the heat and how it benefits endurance and things like that. Now,
man.
Are you Yeah, talk about that. No, I mean, I just want to talk about what you're doing. I mean, I usually get in after I swim or whatever, but
yeah, I mean, I generally, a lot of people, I actually tell athletes that struggle with like really bad indoor pool conditions, like hit the sauna or the steam room and just like sweat out or sweat off your skin like all the trash you just swam in.
yeah,
Because there's a lot of pools that are just very poorly managed. And so I actually started about 100 days out, just starting to like kind of acclimate myself to being able to withstand the sauna, and so it doesn't, because listen, like you hop into the sauna for 15 or 20 minutes, it zaps you.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, if you're still in like deep training, you can't really afford that. Like you don't want a sauna session to zap your other session of the day. You don't want your sauna session to deplete you so much that you're so fatigued that the next day is going to hurt. And so I went ahead and started just kind of chipping away, like a couple days a week at 5 minutes, and the next week it was a couple days a week at 6 minutes, and kind of inched my way up. And so what I've been doing now is if I swim, I do 15 minutes right afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually I'm not actually will cut any kind of a cool down off. And so I'll shift it. So, for example, yesterday I had my last efforts in the pool were like 1650s at a pretty hard effort. And instead of cooling down, like doing like an easy 200 chill and then like slowly packing things up, I did 1650s and got right out of the water and hurried over to the sauna. So my heart rate was still high. I hadn't really caught my breath yet, and then sat in there for around 15 or 16 minutes. So right now I'll do the sauna. Or on a 15 or for about 15 minutes. I want to work my way up to about 20 when I swim, at least 20 minutes in the sauna 3 or 4 days a week. When I'm running, I'm now running on the treadmill a couple days a week with no fan, which is about what Texas is. It's just like no fan, you get no wind against you at all. And then on the trainer right now, if it's a really, really short, easy session, I go no fan in a shirt. If it's any kind of a longer session or even a hard session, I just use the fan on the ground to a level 1. So like the lightest breeze possible. Mm-hmm. And as we get closer to race day, I'll probably... depending on what the weather outlook is, maybe take the fan completely out of it, because listen, there's like nothing hotter than running on a treadmill with no fan or doing the trainer with no circulation. It's like compared to cycling when you always have wind in your face. And so those are a couple things I've been doing just to kind of get my body and my mind, like, I'm not doing it to where it's going to affect a hard session, like in the benefit I would get from a fitness aspect from like a hard interval session. Like, for example, Friday I've got a really hard cycling session, and I'm not going to sacrifice the benefit and fitness and adaptation I would get from that just for the sake of trying to be acclimated from a heat standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, it's not a big enough return. Like I'm not that close yet, and so I'll take care of myself in that aspect and set myself up for success. But when and where I can, I'm really trying to kind of slowly get into where I can get up to 20 minutes in the sauna right after a swim and not feel zapped.
Yeah. How are you nutritionally handling that? Like a swim and then you get in the sauna. I've been, one of my favorite books is this book called "You're Not Sick, You're Thirsty," and and it's basically about how dehydration causes, in this person's opinion, most of illness and disease. And a lot of that comes down to the iodine and salt balance in the hydration process. And I'm just always curious about it because, like, I talk about, how I will go out and a lot of times run without nutrition or something like that to kind of kick in the usage of fat stores and things like that. But I'm always wondering because I'm a kind of guy that's always just drank a lot of water, and that in its own right can be maybe not the best thing to do because when you drink a lot of water without the appropriate sodium levels and things like that, that actually works counterintuitively, and can like increase blood pressure and things like that. At least this is what I read about. So I'm just curious because you swim and then we get in a sauna. Like I've done that, and I'll bring in just water. But I've been thinking about like maybe just a little pinch of sea salt or something in the water, because you're getting rid of so much sodium in your sweat and things like that. So do you ever think about stuff like that, or do you use nutrition?
I'm not. I might take like a little water in there with me, just because, like I said, like the purpose for me isn't to like try and lose water weight. It's to get my body to adapt to the heat and then sweat out less sodium. And so the point for me isn't to lose weight or to lose water weight. It's just to get my my skin and my body and everything adapting and being a little more accustomed to such high temperatures.
Right.
I'm going to get water in the race. I'm going to get electrolytes in the race. It's just getting that feeling and getting my body to respond in a different way. I don't change much up. Like, I usually it'll usually be a little bit before I can even like eat. After I do something like that, like yesterday I swam, was in the sauna for 20, showered, went to the grocery store, was another little over an hour before I even got home. And so I didn't really have any water, and so it's I haven't really played around that much in that aspect of it, just because I don't guzzle water while I'm in there. I'll just take kind of a sip here or there, but no extra salt or anything.
Do you so you swim with just water, or do you use EFS or
just water?
Okay. All right. I don't know. It's just I always feel like that when I guzzle water, it does throw me off a little bit. I feel like I'm super dehydrated, and you always hear about that too. Like people will pass out at the end of runs or at a race or something, and it's because they haven't been, getting their electrolytes or their salt or whatever. They're just going straight water, and how that can be, that can really throw your. It's like drinking straight water in a sauna, for example. I just feel like that can flush necessary salt, sodium levels out. So I'm always curious about it. I don't know enough yet to really quite understand it, but you just get that sense sometimes when you drink a lot of water that you bloated and that your body's like hoarding water, and you get and that's the salt part of it, or the sodium is the part that actually makes water work in your body, and instead of like holding on to it and flooding cells and things of that nature. It's just a interesting thing to me. They used to fight for salt. It's so valuable.
Right. Seriously, it's the forecast usually, like the average in Galveston isn't around like low 70s, but it can be in the 80s. And low 70s will still even seem warm. It's like it's weird to think about, but when we've had this kind of warm spell here across the country the last few weeks, like from going like super cold, even like temps in like the 50s to 60s, like athletes feel it. It's like athletes are like, oh man, it was a little warmer today. I think that may have gotten to me. And you're like, wait a minute. Like, and it's weird because like in the summer, you're running in like the 80s and 90s, and it drops down to the 50s or 60s. You're like, bam, shot out of a cannon like dynamite. And your run is like effortless. Mm-hmm. And so it's amazing what even like 15 or 20 degrees can do to your performance if you're not prepared for it. So I'm just trying to do the best I can to prepare for it and make sure I'm no stone unturned.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's there's nothing worse, right? You can't. It's almost like you can't do enough. And I remember you were telling me, or you were talking about before, how you think hot weather training is like the best thing you can do.
It is.
Even more than elevation, even if you're going in an elevation race.
Mm-hmm. Yep. There's a lot of new literature out there too that confirms that it's as good as altitude training, if not better, for blood plasma levels. So it just has a large benefit. It's kind of like heat is the hills of temperature. Like it's good for cool weather, it's good for altitude, it's good for hot weather. Versus altitude weather is good for better aerobic, anaerobic capacity, but what if you can't handle it? It's 90. And so it's that's what I think about. I think about heat. It may suck, and you may not enjoy it in the moment, but it is well worth it.
Mm-hmm. Do you run like the Rocky kind of thing where you're overloaded with gear sometimes?
I do not do that.
Okay.
No, I do not subscribe to that effort, or not that effort, that approach. Mainly because a lot of people, even like the smallest thing, will throw off their run cadence or their run form, and so adding anything extra, beyond warm enough clothing, I don't do that. So I mean, if I'm depending on how things are going, like. I mean, right now, just running on the treadmill, if I'm running like with no fan, is plenty.
Mm-hmm.
If I get to the point, then I'll put on maybe an extra shirt if I feel like that's needed. But again, I don't want to sacrifice fitness gains and consistency and adaptation for just flat out being hotter when I run slow.
Yeah, that's always
It's a fight. It is, and again, like that's that. That's why our sport's so interesting. Is there's just the ebb and flow and the pull and push and the choosing to do something or not do something, or overload on this and overload on that, and how should I evenly space these workouts, or what's this, or is it okay to do these back to back, or what's too hot and what's too cold, or should I even do this, and how should I dress? And it's just there are so many variables that you can prepare for them all. You just have to know the how and the why behind it, and then most importantly, not waiting until the last minute. So my other athlete that's doing Texas 70.3, she's just started as well doing less. She has a ceiling fan when she does her trainer rides, which is fine. That doesn't even give you that much cooling. But then in terms of swimming, she's hitting the sauna as well after swim stuff. So and it's not a big deal for her because she lives in Houston, so she's not too far away.
Yeah.
But it can always be hot and windy there, and it's been a little bit cooler too. So a little bit, getting ahead of the game never hurts.
Yeah, because no matter what, that race day could end up being hotter than anything you've trained in.
Oh, for sure.
Just like that in the spring,
Yeah.
So,
better to be prepared than not.
Preparation is king.
Yep.
All right, man. So, thanks for listening. And as we mentioned earlier in the podcast, coaching is always available. If you go to crushingiron.com, you can see everything that you would want to know. Of course, there's over 130 podcasts you can kind of listen to and get the philosophy of the Crushing Iron team. I think there's even a coaching philosophy podcast. And there will soon be a coaching philosophy video. We are also going to be releasing, over time, a series of how to not suck at swimming videos. They will be coming out soon. And they will be probably initially released in our closed group on Facebook. If you want to get in there, and we highly recommend it for good conversation, good people, and just great
people.
Good people. Great people, good information, and great discussion. You can search Crushing Iron Group on Facebook. We have a public page that you can also follow that is not anywhere near as active as the closed group. Crushing Iron Group on Facebook is the search phrase, and we will let you in there, and you can meet a lot of cool people and hook up with and meet at the races and stuff like that. That's what everybody's talking about. It's like, all right, we've been talking to each other for a long time now. We got a big season of races coming. Yep. And now we can finally hook up all over the country and all over the world with people who have been on board for a long time in the Crushing Iron Group.
We're probably pretty close to Chattanooga.
What do you mean?
Like the countdown.
Oh, the countdown for Chattanooga is coming, yeah.
How many days we are out?
I have no idea.
Yeah, me either.
It's May 22nd? May 20th?
I think it's May 20th.
It's right around there. So anybody that's a mathematician can figure that out for us.
Yeah, it's got to be like at least 10 days or something, or 100 days, something like that. 110 days, just at the quick. 110 days. So we're almost 100 days to chat.
Yeah.
And we'll let somebody else out there do 100 days of Chattanooga video.
Right, and exactly. If if you are out there doing Chattanooga, we've got at least 40.
50.
50
No,
people from our closed
50.
group are doing Chattanooga 70.3. So if you're doing that and you want to hang around a bunch of people that, I don't know,
do triathlon,
at least have something in common.
Exactly, yeah. And we'll, as we get closer, we'll be announcing some get-togethers and stuff where people can meet up and get to meet each other face-to-face, and the people who are contributors can chat up, and even you lurkers out there who listen and are in the group and just like to watch, you get to meet people face-to-face, and you can't just stand in the corner and look at us creepily.
Yeah, you might have to actually meet somebody in person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because we know that's about it's about connection and meeting people. Let's do it.
That's it, man.
That's what we're all about. Giving everybody as much information as we have without holding back. That's what the Crushing Iron podcast is about. No secrets. Unless it's secret confessions.
That's right, or no, silent confessions.
Silent confessions. And that's if that, just so you know, that's our book club book of the month. Silent Confessions. It's out there on the internet.
Go pick it up, and on the last page you'll find a Crushing Iron coupon. Is
that right? Oh. Anyway, so yeah, coaching camps. Camps are almost full, but I think there's some openings. If you go to crushingiron.com, you can look at our camp video, and more than one video, and you can see what's going on with the camps here in Nashville, Tennessee. Great venues, great people, awesome alternative getaway vacation weekend, and doing some work.
In the honky tonk.
And the honky tonks are always there if you need them.
That's what people say, I guess.
Okay.
All right, man.
All right, that wraps up Crushing Iron Podcast 134.
And we'll check you next time.
All right, thanks for tuning in. See you later.
Perfect. See you, man.
Bye.